Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 42 of Celestial Journey. Our flying machine here has been running for the last day or so, and our reward for that is 5,000 plus shimmer leaf. And look, we just got another one. Awesome. So this really takes care of our shimmer leaf problem, kind of, at one small cost, and that is the tick per second time, TPS cost is kind of high. In fact, it takes 10 milliseconds, and that's about best case. If I run this command a bunch of times, well, I guess it's less than that now, but especially when I'm not in the dimension, for some reason, it reports taking more TPS. So I think that has to do with how world generation time is accounted for. Basically, if I'm in the dimension, world generation time is not like accounted in this number, whereas when I'm not in this dimension, world generation time is included. That's my guess, anyways. I'm not 100% sure. It's because we have to generate, right? We generate 16. No, we generate more than that. We generate 32 chunks in each direction every 16 times we go forwards. So basically, on average, every time we go forward one thing, we have to generate 4 chunks or so. In any event, I found that for best performance, if I just use a clearing quarry, it only makes one pass across everything, and then after that, it's all mined up, so no longer has to check, hey, is this a block on the filter or not? It seemed to improve it slightly, so I just made that small change. But anyways, as a result, this thing more or less takes care of our shimmer leaf. So now that we have enough, I'm going to turn it off for the time being, and I'll run it as needed. But with that, I think we can now make Neutronium ingots in significant quantities. So first we need we have 1 ingot. We need 6 to make the neutron collector, if I recall. Yeah. And some other stuff, but mostly just 6 Neutronium ingots. So let's see if we can do that. Looks good. 471,000 bytes. A lot of gas tiers. Aside from that, let's see. That's a lot of air reagents. Lots of sunny quartz and terra steel and netherite. 19,000 supremium and 8,100 frozen blocks. 5,700 compressed obsidian. Alright, fire. While that runs, there's something else I want to discuss as well. So over here, not that dimension, this one. Over here, this is where we had our obsidian farm before. Some of you had mentioned in the comments that you thought a lot of the lag may have been from the item entities sitting on the ground for too long. That makes sense. So I tested a few things out. First of all, the hopper hock here, it takes it a couple seconds to pick up the items, right? As you saw, the item entities kind of lay around for a little bit before they get picked up. So I decided to try some things out, and I ended up settling on using these pearled ender hoppers for item collection. So if we look at ender hoppers here, the basic ender hopper leaves items on the ground for a couple seconds before it picks it up, kind of like the hopper hock here does. However, apparently the pearled version is a straight upgrade to it, as it says here. It not only does it not create particles above the items to show hey, I'm about to pick this item up, it actually just basically picks it up instantly. The items don't even hit the ground. So yeah, this ends up making this farm take a lot less tick time. And in fact, we can see while I'm in this dimension, it takes about this amount, but when I'm not in the dimension, it takes 5 milliseconds. I don't know why there's such big differences in tick time. I think it's because I'm in single player and it has different accounting for the graphics threads versus I don't know. That's bad speculation on my part, and I should not make it. But in any event, it has resulted in significantly increased performance of this farm. So, well, not in terms of items per second, but in terms of it takes a lot less tick time. So I can just leave it running all the time now, which is awesome. So in that time I spent yabbing, has this finished yet? No, it hasn't. It's made 4, or no, I requested 5, right? So it's made 3 of the Neutronium ingots, and it looks like the bottleneck is it takes a long time to craft sunny quartz. But in a minute and 20 odd seconds, we should have the rest of our Neutronium. How awesome is that? as our neutronium crafts, the next thing I want to talk about is how we're going to use all that neutronium, and perhaps a little hacky thing I might do. So, the final item, practically speaking, in the pack is the creative satchel. Once you have the creative satchel, you have creative, items, right? And the rest of these are just like flavor. These also produce creative, like infinite items. So given that, how much neutronium do you need to make the creative satchel? Well, by my estimate, it takes somewhere around 450 neutronium ingots. The satchel itself takes a bunch of blocks, and perhaps the biggest cost, though, are these two mana pools. Each take 15 blocks of neutronium. So if we go by 450 ingots, there's really two ways to go there. First, you can use the neutron collectors. Neutron collectors take 6 ingots each, right? We're about to make one, but they produce neutronium for you in return. However, there's a slight problem here. One neutron collector produces 1 ingot of neutronium per day, very approximately. I think it produces like a little bit over that, but not much. So it takes a neutron collector 6 days just to pay for the neutronium that goes into it, and only after that do you start making a profit. So what I'm saying is, if I were to make, if I were to take 450 ingots of neutronium and turn them all into neutron collectors, it would take 6 days for me to get those 450 ingots back to craft the creative stuff. Of course, that makes no sense. If I have 450 ingots of neutronium, why am I turning them into neutron collectors? Why don't I just, turn them into the creative satchel? That's a good question. Obviously don't do that. I guess the somewhat more reasonable approach is to make a couple neutron collectors, maybe 10. Let's say you make 10 neutron collectors. That takes 60 neutronium ingots. That's a lot, right? We've made 6 so far, and the other, 54 don't come free. But say you make 10 neutron collectors. Now, these make 10 neutronium ingots a day. You're still stuck waiting 45 days to produce the other 450 neutronium to continue. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 10 neutron collectors, and then I'm going to go on a virtual vacation for 45 days. And by that, I mean I'm going to cheat in 450 neutronium ingots, because no one wants to, I don't want to make neutronium for the next 10 episodes, because that is what it would take to make 450 neutronium, maybe even more than 10 episodes. I also don't want to just make neutron collectors and then AFK for 45 days. And I know for sure no one wants to watch that. So, yeah, that's my plan. And if it upsets you, well, too bad. I think that this, making a little bit of neutronium is fun. Making, 60-ish ingots is a fun challenge. Scaling that up 10 times is just going to be a waiting game. That's unreasonable. Alright, so since I've ranted about that long enough, I'm pretty sure our neutronium's done. Woohoo! So that is our first 6 ingots of neutronium. What are we going to do with that neutronium? Obviously, make the neutron collector. So this, let's see. If I take the creative key out of it, I don't need package shuttle. That seems like an easier approach. Alright, so let me drop this then, and then I'll go and code the recipe just as a normal processing. So I'm excluding the creative key from the recipe, because I found that trying to nested craft these creatives sometimes gets a little crazy, and I would rather just have separately craft the creative key and the rest of the neutron compressor parts. So here's the recipe. Or we'll put it in a crafting table. For now, it won't be one of the auto crafting tables. It'll probably never be one of the auto crafting tables, just because we never need a large number of them. Anyways, let's get a table for it, and then we can request a neutron collector. A table. There we go. So when we request this, it should, as usual, dump the stuff in the box, light up our light to tell us there's work to do. Grab these, and go. Perfect. Our first neutron collector. All right. So, according to the documentation, this thing produces one pile of neutrons, which is one, a nugget of a nugget every 5 minutes. And hey, cool, we get a progress number. That seems to be about right. I'm gonna try a few things on the off chance that it's tick acceleratable. I want to test that. Let's see. I have a imaginary time block here, right? By my vines. It does not appear to be tick accelerated. Or at least not by imaginary time blocks. And I kind of knew that. I just had to be, 1000% sure. All right. Well, then we'll just put this, here and let it do its thing. So yeah, every 5 minutes it'll produce a tiny pile of neutrons. At least I think it produces a tiny pile. If it produces like an ingot or something, I'll allow myself to be pleasantly surprised. So while our first neutron collector is collecting, let's make more creative keys. We're gonna need, if we're gonna make 10 neutron collectors, we need 10 keys. Remember, I have the recipe still encoded to pretend to make the satchel, so I have to lie to it and tell it to make the satchel. Anyways, I expect this will take it a couple minutes to calculate the crafting plan, so I'll come back when it's done. Alright, here's our crafting plan, and the missing item is enchanted fabric. So we're going to have to make a lot of these enchanted fabrics. I mean, a lot of them. And if you remember our problem from before, these actually are kind of a pain to craft because they have to be made in the arcane crafting terminal. And the arcane crafting terminal kind of struggles with pulling items from the ME network. Let me demonstrate. So if I, put the recipe in here, double click it to tell it to craft a stack, it takes it a good like 20 seconds to do so. And that's actually because the ME network is large. If it were on a small subnet, it's actually pretty quick. So to work around this, my plan is to make 3 ender chests, at least 3 here in the overworld. They'll all be blue, and I just put the blue into 3 different locations. One will hold mana pearls, one will hold mana string, one will hold mana weave cloth, and connect these up to our ME network. And remember that that entire dimension that we made that's a magical forest? Well, that's a pretty ideal place to do, Thaumcraft crafting, right? So if I head over there next, note when teleporting to teleport to the right magical forest. This is the one, our old one. I went there and it was like, hey, this dimension is empowered, and it tried to kill me. Apparently my armor can prevent that kill effect, but I think it drained a fair amount of power out of my capacitor just to keep me alive for like 10 seconds until I left. Alright, anyways, let's go to the right magical forest this time around. And we can build ourselves a tiny little subnet. I guess it's not even a subnet because it doesn't, well, I mean, it's just another network. I distinctly wanted it to not be connected to our main network because I only want to see these items, and I didn't want to run a quantum ring to here because general advice for quantum rings is you want both sides to be chunk loaded at all times, otherwise it could cause network flickering, and I don't want to chunk load this side at all times because that would require chunk loading a new dimension, which, it's not like a huge cost, but it's a significant, or maybe not, but it's a meaningful cost. Anyways, now what I can do is then encode this recipe here, and it crafts extremely quickly. So now I can just do this. And what I can do is every 3 chunks, set up another crafting table, because eventually I'm going to run out of enchanted fabrics or whatever. I mean, I'm going to run out of this in this chunk, and then I can just go over to the next chunk and start crafting. And this is much faster than trying to craft these in the overworld, because for one, I have infinite amount of this around me, right? I'm in a magical forest. And for 2, I don't have to deal with the crafting lag of crafting in that slow, stupid, busy ME network. I made a few changes on the overworld side to stock these ender chests a bit faster. I basically swapped out the export buses for interfaces with item translocators. So now we should never run out of items in the input side, and I should just be able to go from table to table, emptying out all the V that's available in these chunks and moving on. So just like this, I should be able to craft the thousands of cloth that I need. I don't know why it doesn't recharges so slowly. That is something I am slightly concerned about because I need the V to recharge so I can use it. But I'll check back and maybe it's just slow in RF Tools dimensions or whatever. If it doesn't recharge at all, obviously that's not going to be okay. But if it just recharges slowly, I mean, I guess I could deal with that. I don't need to craft all that often. So anyways, I have 6 tables set up right now. I'm going to go ahead and clear them all out, and we'll see how much cloth that makes. Alright, so I've cleared it all out. We have seen a tiny little bit of recharging, so I guess it just recharges at a very slow rate in here. No clue why. Maybe it has to do with the time? Although I didn't mess with time in this dimension, did I? I don't know. In any event, I'll leave good enough alone. If we have to move this somewhere else, I can move the entire setup pretty easily. But this is the basic setup for, much easier enchanted fabric crafting. And we have 4,000 of this. So yeah, with this system, even if I can only come here and craft, once every 6 hours, it'll be much easier than using the slow crafting table that I have in the overworld. The other question is, will V recharge in that dimension at all while I'm not there? Because I have no trunk loaders in that dimension, right? That dimension should be completely unloaded. Will it recharge? I honestly have no clue. I'll find out in, a couple hours, I guess, when I go check it again. But with that spellbinding cloth out of the way, we can now craft our creative keys. Go. I expect this will, well, I don't know what will be the bottleneck here. Probably applying all those upgrades. In the event, I'm just going to let this run, and it'll do its thing. Just for reference sake, I check our neutron collector, and it is indeed only producing piles of neutrons. I was hoping maybe on the off chance it would be producing, nuggets or ingots or something, but that is not the case. Oh well. As we continue to craft Neutronium, I'm sure we'll run into new bottlenecks. So as we make our next 6 ingots, our next bottleneck is Supremium Essence again. If you remember, we set up that all those Supremium ovens to make essence. This dimension might be not unpowered right now, actually. Hold on. Never mind, we're good. Because I never built much energy storage, if I'm running the infusion system, sometimes my dimensions get unpowered. It resulted in me, I don't have it here, teleporting into unpowered dimensions and taking a lot of damage before. But we should be good now. Anyways, previously, right, we set up this thing to make essence, and the good news is it's very low lag. The bad news is it takes a lot of materials and it's actually pretty slow. So I'm thinking, why don't we take this, the concept we have here with this obsidian farm, the other half of it I'll make into an essence farm. I've previously debated whether or not I think it's worth making an essence farm like this, but let's try it out. We're producing obsidian essence extremely quickly, right? And at 256 essence, infernium essence per supremium, it may or may not be better than trying to expand that system. I honestly don't know, but you never know if you don't try. Well, there's no doubting that this farm produces infernium very fast. We're probably producing multiple stacks of blocks a second. However, it's still, you have to compress it 256 to 1 to get to supremium, right? So in the end, I'm not actually sure yet if it's going to be faster than that. But once we have the blocks of infernium, I just have to set up a couple of crafters to compress them into supremium. Thankfully, because we can operate on blocks when doing this, a single crafter is enough to keep up with all of those plants and then some. We're still working through the backlog that we created while I was setting all this up. I did have to make a master infusion crystal, but at this point in the game, that's nothing. So, I just have a bunch of recipes encoded here. It goes, starting from infernium, it goes up to prudentium, then intermedium, then supremium, lastly to superium, and we store the blocks. So right now this is producing multiple blocks a second, which is far faster than that, right? That entire setup, I recall, was a block per 4 seconds, something like that. So this is order of magnitude faster. However, we are still working through the backlog. So once we're through the backlog, we'll see how much, what the practical rate is. I imagine it'll still be faster than that, but maybe not by this much. One thing I can do too is I can try to sneak in more growth accelerators. That'll always be a way that we can get a little bit more growth out of this. We're now through the backlog of Supremium or Infernium essence that had built up earlier. So now we can see the real rate that this runs at, which seems to be about a block a second. A little bit faster than that maybe. But that means that, these however many plants, 40-ish plants, is faster than these 50-ish ovens, which is, pretty ridiculous. Each single plant can produce more Supremium than a Supremium oven. But in any event, we're gonna need this Supremium pretty soon to make more Neutronium. Now, one thing I am slightly concerned about is the tick time impact, which doesn't look actually all that bad. We're 15 milliseconds per tick while I'm here, which means it'll be decreased when I leave, I expect. It's a lot, but it's not unacceptable. I'm going to try jamming in a little bit more growth acceleration, I think, because I'm crazy like that. About 10, I think, more imaginary time blocks were squeezed in here in between, and that seems to have increased our rate a little bit. Very non-scientifically, I'd say it's closer to 2 a second now. I've also stepped up our production of Glacialis and Aquas and all these things. I didn't expect that the limitation on this system would be build height, but I'm getting pretty close. These are all the ones producing these potion flasks, and they extend pretty darn near build limit. We're up at Y level 201 now, so I can put 25-ish more before I'm actually at build limit. In any event, the bottleneck currently in my production of, or the reason I'm doing this is to make these frozen blocks, but the bottleneck here now is that I have run out of simple stimulant. So I need to scale this one a bit more. So it's easy enough to scale this up from, I think I went from 4 to 16 alchemy tables. All I need is, I had to duplicate the item filter a few times, place all these, and we also had to increase the number of pulverizers providing the bronze blend. So we went from 1 to 4. But anyways, this should now, eventually anyways, start producing an excess of simple stimulants. Right now I suspect we're still filling backlog demand, but this will produce an excess of simple stimulants and allow us to get this system running at full speed again. Why are you? Oh yeah, these all probably got jammed because we ran out of simple stimulants. I'm not too concerned about the jamming problem. They only jam when we run out of resources. So, just don't run out of resources and they won't jam. With all of our system upgrades in place, let's see how we stand on the next set of Neutronium. Oh, we're not there yet, that's for sure. What are we missing? 10,000 blocks of Supremium Essence. If we say we get that at 1 to 2 a second, 2 a second, that's like 2.5 hours. 1 a second, that's like 3 hours. Wait, that math doesn't work out. 1 a second, that's 3 hours. 2 a second, that's 1.5 hours. Like not the worst, I guess. There's only so much I can do to make that system faster. And the thing is, maybe we don't have much tick time overhead left. That dimension is taking up 10 milliseconds of tick time. Yeah, there's really not much. I could add more plants or add more growth accelerators, but that just means we're borrowing tick time from other, functions. We're not really speeding anything up. I guess I could take a couple-hour break. We'll come back when we're ready to make that second neutron collector then. We're back from a small break. I was away for, maybe like 4 or 5 hours doing some other things, waiting for crafting to happen. And when I came back, I had the nausea effect. I actually should have recorded it, but it was a little obnoxious, so I decided to fix it. Anyways, what happened was my LP network was empty. It was all the way full at, some point, but when I started doing all this crafting, I actually started consuming LP faster than my one altar could fill it. So I had to swap out almost all of my runes of the orb with speed runes. And at this point, I'm actually pumping blood into my life network slightly faster than I'm using it, which is good. But I'm also I can't pump blood into the altars fast enough. So if I, swapping the last few runes has no effect. So anyway, what's happening is I'm pumping blood. I think at 1k LP a tick into this altar, right? That's what this is doing here at exactly 1k a tick. So I'm pretty sure that's the limit I've run into. What I could do, in fact, I might do that right now, is put another ender tank and have 2 ender tanks pumping into this blood altar. At which point we'll have up to 2k LP a second available to us for crafting. There we go. So now this should have, So now we're pumping blood into the altar faster than we can pump it into our life network. So we may as well replace the last few orb runes with more speed runes. That way we can have a bit more overhead before we run out of usable life essence per tick. But what that means is if I need to scale my life essence or my all that production much more, I'm not going to actually need a second altar dedicated to keeping my orb full. I've never run into that before. All right, so now we're pumping a hair over 1100, right? 1130. I can do math. 61,159 minus 60,029. That's 1130 LP per tick into my life network. Cool. That should take care of that problem for a little bit. Another thing that happened while I was away is that the pack was updated and coagulated plant balls were added. So these previously didn't have a crafting recipe. Now they do. It's like kind of a hassle. So I want to see how these work exactly. It says it works by duplicating plant entities or plant non-entities, right? Yeah, plants that don't have a tile entity. Specifically, this was done to address the shimmer leaf problem. So let's try it out. If I take shimmer leaf and a plant ball, I assume I just click it and I get another one. Oh, I click it and I get a handful of other ones. I like it. All right, so we're gonna need to automate that those plant balls, and that'll probably be a better way of producing shimmer leaf going forward. The recipe is, a little obnoxious. There's a bunch of I guess there's the three witchery plants that grow. Have I grown wormwood? Oh, I have. Okay. I wasn't sure if I had like a little bit or if I had a ton of it. Grass can be made with nature essence. Dead bushes. I guess we can. No, we can't always smelt trees, right? Because we get wood ash if we do this. Okay, well, we can make drying racks. I mean, 6 minutes is a long time, or we can make it in mana. Yeah, in any event, I'll deal with that next episode. But yeah, now there is a alternate and probably better way of producing shimmer leaf. For now, though, let's see about making one more neutron collector. So in the time that we were away, I think our machines have run enough that, would you look at that, one more. Let me see. There's still some steps that take a long time. If nothing here takes a long time, I was going to try to let this run in real time, but I think if I let this run in real time, we'll be looking at this screen for about 7 minutes or more. The bottleneck is all this sunny quartz. Oh well. In practice, taking 7 minutes to make a neutron collector is already pretty good, right? I was hoping we'd have it down to like a minute or two. But I think if I add sunny quartz to our big crafting wall, we can get this down into the, a couple minutes territory. All right, we're almost there. A few air gems left, and I think I still have to put the whole thing together once it's done. But all right, looks like that's done. Expect one of these lights to light up pretty soon. This one? Neutron collector, yeah. Why is it not lighting up? Oh, I wasn't making neutron collectors. I made neutronium ingots. Shoot. One more step then. We have to combine all that into the neutron collector. Hopefully there's nothing here that takes a lot of crafting. So I've started storing capacitors on my wall, octated capacitors. So now this process, yeah, it only has to, craft starting from compressed capacitors. Now this process then shouldn't take all that long. Start. And in fact, the estimate is sub 20 seconds. Yeah, it's just how it has to do all this compressing. But we can wait 20-ish seconds for it, right? I'm also probably almost out of firelight, so I have to make a trip back to Vethia to go mine a little bit of that. But that's no biggie. But yeah, before I was storing capacitors on my resource wall, this was like a 7-minute craft to make these ultimate compressed capacitors. And now it's a 20-30 second craft. Shows how big an impact pre-crafting resources can have, even if it's only crafting jobs. The vast majority of the time, that applies to processing jobs, but sometimes when you need, crafting jobs in sufficiently high quantity, then I'd probably pick the worst item to use. Where are you? I also went the wrong way. Wait, what? Oh, right, I need a creative key, don't I, to do this. There we go. All right, our second neutron collector. Cool. So these again produce a pile every about 6 minutes. So I guess I should hook these up to like item conduits so they don't overfill eventually. Apparently, when you store neutrons in a drawer, you can see the picture from the other side. You can I don't know what you even call it. It's not transparent, right? It's I don't know. In any event, these collectors will slowly dump their contents into this drawer. I suppose we could be optimistic and put drawer upgrades in here, although this is being particularly optimistic or pessimistic, I guess, depending on how you look at it. It means we'll be gone for a while. Anyways, let's wrap up this episode here. We'll come back tomorrow and continue to tackle the bottlenecks in our neutron collection. My goal is still to make at least 10, because I think once we make 10, we've sufficiently, we've played the neutron making game as long as that is interesting for. So plant balls will definitely be part of that process. But just out of curiosity, let's see what else we might need. If I request 12. Oh wow, that was fast. Mushrooms, red mushrooms. Do I not have a recipe for that? That's easy enough to fix. Sunflowers, puffer fish, shimmer leaf. So these I have to turn up my thresholds, right? Because I have plenty of them. Well, I have systems that make them, but they're just turned off right now because they think we have enough. Shimmer leaf, right? That's why we have plant balls. Wow. Runes, although these will catch up. Netherite and supremium. Okay, so this is crafting. Frozen blocks are crafting. Eris, I have no Eris? Oh, it's because I'm making runes. Okay, cool. Well, it's nice to see this. It shows you things that we need to either stock more of, produce more of, or something along those lines. In any event, yeah, we'll keep all this in mind for tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one.